seriously popular.
What is the other side of adulthood?
Death.
Welcome to the Life of Bryony, the podcast where we tackle life's messiest moments and uncover the strength and the joy within them. Today's episode is very much a mental health check-in with the wonderful Helen Flanagan. Helen, many of you will recognise from Coronation Street, and she recently did a turn on Celebs Go Dating. She's been incredibly open about her experiences with OCD and ADHD, and I really think this is one of her most revealing interviews yet.
And I remember getting OCD, intrusive thoughts of me and how fucking ridiculous. I love my children more than anything and would die for them. That I was racist. And I got all these horrific, my OCD, she thought was getting so bad that I remember just going to my mom's and absolutely crying my eyes out.
From navigating the pressures of fame to confronting her deepest struggles, Helen Flanagan, right after this. I am so looking forward to this half-term break. We're going to Dorset, and I'm looking forward to one of my favourite things, and I'm sure this will resonate with you, dear listener, is not setting the alarm on my phone. I'll probably wake up earlier than I usually do, but it's having no pressure to do anything, and I can't wait. And it's been a particularly busy half term. My daughter started secondary school, obviously, so we're crawling towards it, and we're just going to hang out and have lots of fun and have no structure to proceedings. And probably I'm going to throw myself into some cold sea. Anyway, if you are listening to this the day it comes out, which I know you will be because you are my favourite people, you'll know that this week it is Halloween. Oh, yes, Halloween, which is like, I don't know, as a mum, it's become a more important date in the diary than it was sort of 15 years ago for me, when it was basically just an excuse to dress up like a sexy cat. I always think of like the is it Mean Girls, where Lindsay Lohan turns up and she dresses up as a scary zombie bride while everyone else is like in skimpy outfits and animal ears. So this Halloween, it is for my daughter anyway, half term, so we're going to be away. And we're going away with friends, and we're going to have a Halloween party because we're going to be in the middle of nowhere, so there will be no trick-or-treating. But my daughter's been she's actually going as Cher from Clueless. I know. Like, the sophistication of this outfit is quite amazing. So she was like, Mum, you all have to wear Halloween costumes as well. And I was like, okay, fine. And I am going as... I don't know how to describe this. I'm going as a wacky inflatable tube man, and I'm waving around my arms, you know, like on the side of a motorway that tell you that like there's a petrol station or like a diner. The reason for this is I'd taken our children to what I call the kids' casino, an arcade, essentially, in like this big place called Gravity in a shopping centre in South London. And it's got like bowling and go-karting and VR stuff. And they went on this VR rabbit thing, and they looked, and I was doing an impression of what our two children looked like, swaying. And she said, you look like a wind tunnel man. And I was like, that's what I'm going as for Halloween. This is what life has come to at the age of 44. And I will, of course, be sure to post it on my Instagram on Thursday. No filters.
Wow. What's up? I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.
What is... Dax, are you?
Tracking all our cars on Carvana Value Tracker on all our devices? Yes, Kristen, yes, I am.
Well, I've been looking for my phone for...
In Dax's domain, we see all. So we always know what our cars are worth.
All of them?
All of them. Value surge, trucks up 3.9%.
That's a great offer.
I know. Sell?
Sell.
Track your car's value with Carvana Value Tracker today.
This this week, I've been reflecting on how important it is to check in with ourselves and see how we're doing. This week, I got to Tuesday and I was really ratty and really, really overwhelmed. And usually what I would do is just have a sort of breakdown there and then. But I'm getting better as I get older, going, I'm really grateful for this feeling of overwhelm because it is a sign from my brain that I need to have a break. My guest, Helen Flanagan, has been checking in with her mental health for many years. She started acting at a young age, and you probably know her as Rosie Webster from Coronation Street. You may have seen her recently on Celebs Go Dating too. Today, though, Helen is here to share her story beyond the screen about her struggles with pure OCD, with eating disorders, with postnatal depression and ADHD, and how those experiences have shaped her as a mother and as a person. I had such a great catch up with her. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Helen. Helen Flanagan. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Bryony. No, honestly, it's an honour to be invited onto your podcast because you know how much I love your book, No Such Thing as Normal. It really, really helped me when I was really poorly after having Matilda.
I think when you're writing books like that, which come from like this dark place, it's like all the books I've ever written are about hoping that some of the darkness might help other people who are in that moment. So when you reached out to me to say that it had helped, it means so much. But we sort of started this kind of like voice note friendship.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think when I struggled again with my OCD, I was messaging you on Instagram saying that I was struggling again with like pure OCD. I think it was your book as well. Actually makes me a little bit emotional thinking about it because it was honestly, when I think about my struggles with like pure OCD, it probably was like the worst time of my life because you feel, don't you, like you're losing your mind.
Yeah.
And you can't talk to anyone about it.
The shame.
Yeah, and you feel shameful and you feel like you can't talk to anyone. Like I remember I couldn't speak to my boyfriend at the time, Scott, about it. And, you know, and I kind of had the things as well when you have like really bad, like pure OCD, intrusive thoughts, you feel like I can't tell anyone this because I could have my baby taken off me.
Yeah.
You know, so your book for me, I was going to the Priory as an outpatient for therapy. And my mum was amazing. Mum has always been good with like mental health things. But your book was the first, honestly, I read this book and I was like, oh my fucking God, I'm not mental. Like I read the book and honestly, that's why I've been a bit obsessed with you because I've read this book and I've been like, oh my fucking God, I'm not mental. Like why didn't someone give me this book when I was 10? Because I remember from being like a little girl, probably from about 10, I would have struggled with like really bad OCD, intrusive thoughts. And I just thought that maybe I was a bit mad and I would never be able to tell anyone.
You started on Corrie, didn't you, when you were 10, which is a really young time to be. So about the same time, you started getting these intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, I remember I've had them ever since I've been like really young. I remember I would go in. My mum has always been amazing actually with like mental health stuff. I remember going to my mum going, Mum, I keep thinking this and da-da-da. I remember telling her all these things when she was in the bath, telling her all the, you know, the things that were in my head. And my mum was amazing going, no, that's normal. Sometimes we have these thoughts. So I was very lucky that I had my mum. But I remember feeling like when I had Matilda, I remember kind of thinking like, oh, I felt sorry for her for having a mum like me, thinking, oh, she deserves so much better. Like, I kind of feel like with Matilda as well, I'm kind of on guard with her because I kind of feel like, I don't know, but I think she might be a little bit like me. I think she might have a little bit of OCD because, I mean, obviously, you know, I've got respect for my daughter, so I wouldn't say the kind of things, you know, that she said to me. She said something to me and I thought, oh, I think she's like me. I think she might have a bit of OCD like that. I mean, I'm fucking haven't got OCD with cleaning. I mean, my house is an absolute tip. Yeah. But I mean, I have the OCD...
intrusive thoughts.
Obsessive, OCD, intrusive thoughts that I find, if I get myself that mindset, can really torture me, you know?
So can we go back to when you were 10? Because you've spoken about ADHD and there's a lot of... I always think, whenever I talk about my own story, I'm like, you know, I talk about OCD and then you've spoken about PMDD as well. You know, there's a lot of like acronyms and letters. But
basically,
but like, I think it's do you know what? You are not fucked. And this is the thing, and this is why this conversation is so important, because there's going to be people listening right now, Helen, who are like, oh my God, thank God. And if that beautiful woman that I've grown up watching on Corrie, who's like, you know, you're so fucking like lovely and sexy. That I'm not coming on to you, by the way, as I know that you're now taken. I would have, a few weeks ago, I would have done. Like if you've experienced all that, then it is that kind of relief of like, oh, I'm not mad, or I am mad, but I'm not bad.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
So going back to when you were 10, can you talk a bit about what those thoughts were or what was going through your head?
I used to get like really, really dark, like OCD intrusive thoughts that were really quite awful. But I think my kind of OCD thoughts that I've had, well, obviously it's hard to talk about because you don't want people thinking that you're absolutely mental. But obviously I know this is a safe space because we're talking about... It's a safe
space, and we've done episodes on this. And I think it's like an incredibly brave thing to be able to sort of name the thoughts, or the kind of like, it's hard. But I felt the first time I was like, my OCD isn't the type that makes me clean. It's the type that tells me I might be a serial killing paedophile. And when I stand up on stage and say that, people go, ooh, and I go, I'm not obviously a serial killing paedophile, but I would say that. And the fact that I can even make jokes about it now is fucking revolutionary, because there were times in my life where I couldn't look at words like that. I had to find different words to sort of, in a newspaper or something, I had to neutralize them with positive, good words or, you know. So I find that there's like immense power in going, fuck you, OCD.
Yeah, there is. And I find your book just so empowering. Like a lot of kind of OCD thoughts that I had were... Say, for example, I remember being out, I think I was struggling postnatally. I remember being on a night out, my first night out since having Matilda. And I remember I was wearing red lipstick, and I saw there was this guy and he had like a red lipstick mark on his face. And for some reason, my OCD, when I got home, told me that I slept with him in the toilet.
Yeah.
And that I cheated on Scott.
Right,
and I didn't even go near the guy. I just saw a red lipstick mark on his face. And
my God, that is so bringing back fear, those intrusive thoughts on nights out where I was like, I had sex with this many people, or something happened to me in the toilet.
Yeah. So then I would think like the day after, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just cheated on my boyfriend. Like I love my boyfriend. Like, and I can't exactly go turn to Scott. I mean, I absolutely adore the father of my children. I was with him for a really long time, but I think one of the problems with me and Scott is he didn't understand. He didn't try to understand really, but he's not a bad guy. He had a lot of his own stuff going on, but I felt like he wasn't there for me a lot with those kind of things. So I think that was one of the reasons we broke down a lot. But I couldn't exactly turn to him and go, babe, I keep getting these thoughts that I shagged someone on the toilet. I shagged someone in the toilet. Like, what the fuck? I mean, my boyfriend as well, sportsman, very fucking straight down the, And so those were some lines. And then I remember after I had Charlie, I didn't think he was my baby.
Okay.
For quite a while, because I remember he was born with like a lot of like dark hair, and next to me in the ward there was this Asian couple. It's making me laugh now, but I thought for some reason that the midwife would have swapped my baby, because I was confused that I had this baby with black hair. But that wasn't, obviously the midwife was absolutely lovely. This was my OCD because just playing up. So those kind of things. I remember saying to Scott afterwards, going, I really don't think he's our baby. And then it took me probably about 2 weeks to realise, actually, this is my baby and it looks exactly like his dad.
So I'm going to tell you something, and I think I have written about this, but when I was pregnant with my daughter, I became convinced that she was not my husband's.
Yeah.
And my brain was like, what if she... And I know that this is a really common form of OCD, because I wrote about it in my book Mad Girl, and a lot of women have got in touch with me. People will have had these same intrusive, mad thoughts that OCD delivers.
This, for me, just seems so normal to me. So what you're telling me, I really get it.
So how old is Matilda now?
So Matilda is 9, but I remember, talking about those kind of OCD thoughts. I mean, I don't know if I might want to cut this later because it might be a bit too deep, but obviously my beautiful children that I love more than anything are mixed race. And I remember getting OCD, intrusive thoughts of me and how fucking ridiculous. I love my children more than anything and would die for them. That I was racist. And I got all these horrific, my OCD, just thoughts was getting so bad that I remember just going to my mom's and absolutely fucking crying my eyes out. Like, absolutely breaking my heart, because I just was like, I kind of got my head like, my kids have so much better mum than me and all these. I was honestly like, I think it can if you don't, I think you just...
I'm going to take your hand now, but like also it is, well, being a record like that, I don't want to move too far away from the microphone. The other thing that OCD does is it attaches to morality and goodness. It's often known as like doubting disease, but it's also confessional. Like I often find myself saying, I thought this is, like questioning whether my thoughts are right or whether my thoughts are kind of like appropriate. Or am I a bad person for thinking this? And it's really interesting because I know that what OCD will do is it attaches itself to like the big issues of the day quite often. So during all of the Black Lives Matter stuff and racism, again, that's another fear. Am I this? Am I, have I done something terrible? I think Me Too as well. That's another one that OCD will grab it. Like basically whatever OCD will say, whatever the worst thing in the world to be is, you're that.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I remember I really used to struggle sometimes as an actress as well because I would do my lines and then I remember and everyone would be like, Helen, are you okay? And I'd get really hot and bothered because I used to think that I wasn't going to say my lines. I used to think I was just going to come out with something absolutely fucking horrific, just say something really awful and everyone would be like, oh my God, what's Helen just said? Because my OCD would be like, you're not going to say your lines, you're going to fucking say something really awful.
So what was it like to be, I can't imagine. So you have this stuff going on in your head, you have this kind of condition which is hard enough for anyone in there.
I didn't really realise, Bryony, what I had until I read your book.
But how did you, it must have made your teenage years like that. And I wonder actually if there is a link between the fact that you were doing very public, you were very exposed. I mean, like you were, people knew who you were, whether that your brain was trying to create this sort of almost protect you in a way that didn't work, if that makes sense. Like I always think of OCD as a safety mechanism that's gone wrong. So it's trying to keep you safe, but it's actually making you feel much less safe.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether being in the public eye at the age of 10 and that bringing with it, as it does, a certain amount of stuff that perhaps a 10-year-old, is not normal. Maybe your brain was going into overdrive, trying to keep you safe and actually doing the opposite. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I mean, I started taking, I don't know if you know the drug, it's like Concerta Ritalin for ADHD. So I got that from the Priory when I was 16 as an outpatient for ADHD. I think I was just a bit wild when I was about 16 and didn't come home and was always hanging around with guys that were older than me and drinking and what have you. So I remember my mum, and I had like an eating disorder. So I went as an outpatient. Anyway, I took this medication, but I took it like on and off for like, I think it was, the last time I took it, I actually sent me into a psychosis. I was really, really poorly. I think it fucked me up, basically. I think it gave me like panic attacks. I think it gave me anxiety. I think it made me on edge when I didn't need to be. I took it, when I went into the jungle when I was 22, I actually took that 3 times a day. It's basically speed. I took it 3 times a day on like no food, which I shouldn't be doing. And I think it put me on edge. So when I was doing all the trials, I was like this.
What? But was there no...
I mean, you have to laugh, Bryony, because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. But when I think about it, it's
where was the duty
mad.
of care as well?
Well, I don't want to land anyone in it. I mean, I just did the South Africa one. I actually am friends with the producer. She's amazing. I actually really love her. But 10 years ago, I passed all the tests and stuff and what have you. But yeah, I pretty much was a bit off my face, really.
Do you look back to some of the kind of stuff that, because I think back to like the noughties and even, the last decade, there was so much stuff that at the time we all thought was like fine and normal. And I now look back and go, oh my God, that was not okay.
That was not okay, no. Yeah, that was not okay. I remember like even a thing like with mental health and stuff, like things are so different now, like with Love Island and everything, which they absolutely should be. But I remember like a key, and this isn't me getting the violin out. I've had a very good life and I'm actually a very happy person, even though I struggle with my mental health. But I remember even like watching Celebrity Juice, and there was a particular presenter And I remember her just like full on taking the piss out of me. And like, I remember I felt really shit that day and it really affected me. And I actually feel like, you know, thank God now we're so much more aware and we're so much more careful and we think so much more now about mental health and how it affects people and stuff. But actually, I think it did me good in a way. It made me stronger and I'm fine from that. But I really do love now when I see like younger girls that I end up being friends with from nights out in Manchester and they go on Love Island. I'm so glad that there is a better of duty care for people. It's so much better.
You mentioned having an eating disorder when you were 16.
Yeah, when I was about 16. So probably, I mean, I'm naturally slim, but I remember I was obsessed with being 7 stone. I don't know what it was. I just, I was around a lot of actresses and models and they were all doing the photo shoots and I just wanted to be like them. But I remember, I hardly ate anything. My periods only came when I was 16 because I was underweight. Yeah, I remember lots of it. I remember kind of like the school nurse being involved and like Coronation Street would always call my mum up and, stuff. And, my mum was like, Helen, you'll lose your job. And I think it was just a sense of control. I think probably I kind of felt like everything, it was my sense of control, But I think if you have an eating disorder, to be honest with you, it always stays with you. If I'm really honest, I think some of my eating habits probably aren't the best, but I'm definitely healthy because I'm aware of my daughter. Because my little girl the other day said, Mummy, I look really fat, and it really upset me. It really, 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 really upset me. So I think having Matilda for me is a really good, I need to be a good example because I would hate for her to have an eating disorder because it's fucking miserable. I mean, I know you speak a lot about bulimia and your eating disorder, and I just get it.
But the thing is that all of us, I always think that we keep this dark stuff in our heads and we think, oh my God, I'm the worst person in the world for thinking this. And then we realise we all have much more in common, And just listening to you talk about how the shadow of an eating disorder lives with you. And I think that will resonate deeply with a lot of women and men because, I totally get it. And there's almost shame about that as well. There is so much stuff about self-acceptance and body positivity. And yet a lot of us are living with the kind of scars of growing up in a society that told us that if we wanted to be accepted, we had to look a certain way. And this stuff does not get undone in a day. Do you know what I mean? It takes a long time. And, and it is often, I think, when as women we have children ourselves that we start to go, oh, hang on, and see also what our bodies are capable of, above and beyond just being attractive.
Yeah.
We see the magic and the power of our bodies that we go, oh, hang on, this isn't right, And so I'm really grateful to you for kind of talking about this because it doesn't get spoken about. And food is something that we all have to deal with on a daily basis in a way that I don't have to deal with alcohol. I don't have to drink to stay alive. I don't have to take cocaine to stay alive, but I do have to eat.
Yeah.
So every day we have to face these choices.
I've just started, I know it sounds really weird, but I've just started to eat bread again because I just wouldn't touch it. When I got into this thing where me and my ex-fiance split up, that I just suddenly was like, I'm not touching bread and I'm not touching pasta. And I get these weird little quirks that I do with my food because I've got a really lovely boyfriend now and I'm really happy. I'm like, actually, this is probably a bit weird. I should probably just start not doing that.
So literally, you've just started
I've started to eat a little bit of bread. And then I got a sandwich this morning. It was a bacon sandwich, but I thought if I'm going to eat that bread, I'm going to freak out for the rest of the day. And I'm going to feel really shit. I can't eat that bread, but I pick at it. So it's just I think when you have an eating disorder, you always kind of have little quirks and it doesn't really go. But as long as you're healthy, I just wouldn't. It's so hard, isn't it, when you're a mum because you don't want to project your shit on your children. It's so hard. But what I do with my little girl all the time, because I swear too much, and she swore the other day, oh, God, I'm the worst mom.
Did you think, oh, for fuck's sake?
Yeah, for fuck's sake. So I swear all the time, I'm a little girl. But I always say to my little girl, I always say, I'm really sorry. And, like, Mummy loves you more than anything. I'm really not perfect. And I think when I used to look at my parents, I've got an incredible mum and dad, but I always felt like my mum and dad were like superhuman or something. And that, of course they were perfect. They had to be perfect. But I think actually when I always say to my little girl, like, Mummy just really loves you so much. And like, I'm just figuring everything out and I'm really not perfect, but Mummy just tries. And I just kind of put that into her head a little bit, I'm just hoping that she doesn't get any of my shit, but she probably will.
I think what I've realised about parenting is that our job is not to create perfect human beings. It's to be able to be alongside them when life isn't perfect.
Yeah.
We will all fuck up our children just as we were all fucked up by our parents. And that isn't, like I say that with the greatest love in the world for my mum and dad, but they did fuck me up. Yeah. But I can also see that they themselves were fucked up by their parents.
Yes, of
Like,
course.
fuck. And I'm like, my dad, I think, got locked in a cupboard for most of his childhood. And let's not even think about what the grandparents had to put up with.
Yeah.
So I do have an amount of empathy.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
the things that our kids are complaining about, like our parents would be like, "Oh, mate, you weren't locked in a cupboard. Suck it up."
Yeah, sure thing. Hey, you sold that car yet?
Yeah, sold it to Carvana.
Oh, I thought you were selling to that guy.
The guy who wanted to pay me in foreign currency, no interest, over 36 months? Yeah, no. Carvana gave me an offer in minutes, picked it up, and paid me on the spot. It was so convenient.
Just like that.
Yeah?
No hassle.
None.
That is super convenient.
Sell your car to Carvana and swap hassle for convenience. Pickup fees may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
You mentioned that part of the reason you've started eating bread again is, what I'm guessing is that you're happy.
Yeah, no, I've got a really, really lovely boyfriend at the moment. Well, that's the thing as well. It's almost like you read so much, you see so much like, oh, you don't need a man to make you happy. And no, I don't need a man to make me happy, but it really fucking helps when you're in a healthy relationship to a toxic one. Yeah. It really does help your mental health. And that's no disrespect to the father of my children. I've had 3 children with him and I'll always have a lot of love for him. We're both good people, but together we were very toxic.
Right.
I think a toxic relationship can just damage your mental health a lot. Even if when you struggle with your mental health anyway, and, especially when you've got pure OCD and you literally feel like you're going out of your mind.
It's really grown up of you, though, as well, to be able to go, actually, separately, we're not toxic and my ex-partner is great, but together we were a bad mix.
Yeah, we were.
Because I think there's a lot of people that would break up from someone, and because it can be quite difficult to face our own flaws at times. Like, I know I was like, my ex-boyfriend was a dickhead. Do you know what I mean? Like, total. And to actually acknowledge that reality, that actually some people just don't work together and they create a toxic mix, and it's better to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And then move on and not feel the need to be bitter about that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think as well, Bryony, when you have children, it's that thing, like, I'm on block at the moment on Scott's phone.
Oh, really?
I'm on block. But, like, I will always love the father of my children, Do I think that we're really, really going to get on? Probably not. We do each other's fucking head in. But I know that he has the same kind of, like, he always will have a love for me, Like, you always have kind of a respect for each other. Like, I know he's not a bad guy. We've just got our own shit going on. And I think because we're together from so young...
How old were you?
19.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're just together when we were 19. And I just don't think we had that time to grow, like, until we've split up, And yeah, we just didn't work.
What's it like? What was it? So, this as good a time as any. So... exploring the dating world again, because obviously you went on Celebs Go Dating and then a few episodes in were like, I've actually met someone.
I'm such a knob, honestly.
No, you're not a knob. And he ended up being a part of the show. So can we, so talk to us about Robbie?
Robbie, Robbie.
I mean, I'm going to confess something here. I've already done a deep dive on Instagram. I've already gone back over all of his, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'll sign him off for Helen.
Yeah.
You have my approval now.
He's honestly, Bryony, he's lovely. Everybody loves him.
So how did you meet?
So cut long story short, I remember in January, I had a very, very bad reaction to my ADHD medication.
We had lunch around shortly after you had that episode.
Yeah. Which the medication basically sent me into this psychosis. I think it was for about 4 days. I don't really know.
It's, again, something that's really... It's not fantastic that you had a psychotic episode, but really fantastic that you're so open about it, because psychosis happens to a lot of people, far more than we think.
Really?
There's a statistic, someone was talking, I did an event with Mind last week, and someone was talking about how we talk a lot about depression and anxiety, but we don't talk about psychosis. And actually, a lot of people will go through it. And that was quite a shocking experience for you, because also when you're in a psychotic episode, you're not even aware that you're in it.
No, you're not. I remember my nanny had to call my parents because, oh God, I thought there was a man outside my house. I had a very, very bad break-in when I was 22, and there was about 3 men that came into my house.
Well, you were in the house.
Yeah. So basically, when I was in my psychosis, I think it set me back. So I thought there was a man inside my house trying to break in my house with my kids. I thought someone was definitely coming into my house to kill me. And basically, while I was driving home, I mean, it's horrendous. I could have killed someone. I was driving, and because I was so bad on this medication, I thought there was somebody in my boot. So I kept stopping my car all the time because I was like, I can see someone jumping in my boot. Because I was in the psychosis, I thought I could see someone. But anyway, my nanny came and my mum had to take the children away from me. But I think that was the hardest thing.
How was that?
I think what the hardest thing is I really, really fucking love my kids. And I think it was just having to explain, because I was noted at the nursery. I think that was the hardest thing, to explain to the nursery teacher as well, that I think she thought I was off on drugs, that I was basically off my face on drugs, and I had to explain to her that there was a medication from the Priory, that I am a fit mum, I am a good mum. And then I think for her to say, well, I feel a bit more comfortable if Charlie stays with your mum for a bit. I think that was just fucking shit, to be honest. And then it was just kind of I was always on guard. Every time I was taking him to nursery then from ever, I was making sure that Charlie was just immaculate.
Yeah.
When I know that I'm a really good mum, and I think it was just
feeling like you have to prove yourself.
I think that was probably the hardest thing. But I was supposed to be doing a theatre tour for 6 months.
You had to cancel it, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to cancel it. But my priority was basically my kids. I'm not perfect, but I'm a really good mum, Bryony. I love my kids so much, so much. So I think that was it, really. My mum and dad looked after my kids for about a month, and then sometimes they would sleep at mine, sometimes they would sleep at my parents, just till I just got myself really good again. And I was really lucky to have had my parents, but I think that's actually made me realise, oh my God, I understand actually you can never judge anyone, because if I would have been in a different situation, I could have had my children taken off me. If I hadn't had my parents, I could have been seen, mentally unfit to look after my children. Don't judge anyone, because, I couldn't love my children anymore. I literally took medication from a doctor that I thought was going to make me better, and it just obviously reacted really badly.
And that's quite, it was earlier this year. So
that was in January, yeah.
So you met, I remember going out for lunch with you February.
Yeah.
And we talked about, you were really honest about that experience. Yeah. And we were voice noting a bit at the time. But you did not tell me that you'd met this nice dude.
I actually think I met him the week later.
You did tell me there was one, you were going on a date.
I remember though, Bryony, when I was dating after Scott, I was a feral mess. No, I was an absolute feral fucking mess. I don't know what the fuck was wrong with me.
I'll tell you what was wrong. And actually, this is going to resonate deeply with a lot of people who have had to go back out into the dating landscape post a long-term relationship breaking up, is you were having to do something you didn't expect you were going to have to do.
Yeah.
Like, give yourself a bit of a fucking break, Helen. You were a feral mess because, frankly, who wants to go back into the dating world after you've had 3 kids with someone?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. That's true. So that was... I've got some fucking hilarious stories, though. Amazing.
And you will come back and do a special episode.
I've got some fucking amazing stories.
Helen goes dating, and we'll bring Anna Williamson in. She can chip in. So anyway, so you met Robbie on a date?
Yeah, so I've just met him at a bar, and you know what?
Oh, not on a date, at a bar.
No,
That's so old-fashioned.
Just met him in a bar. I was on a man band.
He picked you up in a bar?
Yeah, and I could not stop laughing at this guy. Like, he was so funny. And he, honestly, my boyfriend's actually the funniest guy I've ever met in my life. I definitely think he's ADHD. But he's just, you know what? He's just really, really lovely. He's really kind, really loving.
And he's
really
got
respectful.
a sort of similar, has he got kids and an ex as well? So that's helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got 2 kids, and he's really beautiful with my children. And saying that, I have respect for Scott. But yeah, he's just a really, really lovely man.
And have all the children met each other yet? Or
Yes. Yeah, they do. I mean, I think that can be tricky as well, like kind of like having someone's children. I've never actually met the mother of Robbie's children, but, you know, even though I've never met her, I'm always like really respectful towards her. Like, I kind of treat her children how I would want Scott's girlfriend to treat mine, if that makes sense. So I just see myself as like a good friend. There's obviously boundaries that kind of, you know, because they're all nuts together, 5 kids, but me and Robbie have these things like, you know, if they maybe having a tiny little squabble or something like that, like, he doesn't say anything to my children and I don't say anything to his. So we kind of just, you know, discipline our own.
I imagine that's a deal breaker.
But yeah.
I had how am I going to go about this? I had a mother who had a partner who... I mean, I was a bit older. I was like in my early 20s when she got together with someone else. But he would often discipline me. I mean, to be fair to him as well, I was a fucking nightmare. But I was like, you're not disciplining me. You're not my dad. Who do you think you are? But I think that's probably a deal breaker.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah.
You just can't discipline anyone else's child but your own.
No, not at all. And I want his girls to love me, and my kids love Robbie. But yeah, we very much like have that. So that really works, yeah. But the children are great anyway.
And have you been as open with him about your mental health as you have with me?
I have, actually.
Do you want to bring me into the conversation? Is this podcast just for Robbie?
He's really lovely. I remember I talked about something, and for me, it just was something so like personal. And when I talked about it, I literally got myself in such a bad mindset with it, Bryony. Yeah, and my boyfriend was just like so gorgeous with me. Like, he was so sweet. He literally looked after me so well and I think that's what made me fall more in love with him, because he's so good with like my mental health things. And that's the main thing for me that I need. I need someone that's good for me mentally and emotionally. That's my top thing. And that's what I've realised. And because he is so amazing at all that, he's like my person, because he just knows how to look after me, where, you know, it's no disrespect to the father of my children, you know, I'll always have that love for him, but he didn't know how to cope with me, or didn't know how to do that. And not everybody does, but because of the man that I'm with now really knows how to do that, it makes me happy, you know.
I'm so glad you're happy.
I know, he's lovely. He's really, really lovely. I think sometimes you can love people, but sometimes you just don't work.
You just can't live with them.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people like that. And in fact, I'm sure there's a lot of people, Helen, who would say, Bryony, I love you, but I wouldn't fucking live with you if you were the last person on the planet.
I'd love to live with you, Bryony.
I would love to live with you too.
I'd love to live with you.
In fact, the producer's looking at me as if to say, wind this up because it's midnight now and we want to go to bed. No. But what I would say is, Helen, can I take you for a coffee after this podcast is finished and we can carry on chatting?
Yes, that would be lovely. Thank you so much for having me on, Bryony.
This sounds like a really weird thing to say, given the serious topics we touched on in that conversation, but it really was such a pleasure to chat with Helen today. And I I'm going to get her back on. I think we need her back on. Her openness about OCD, ADHD, postnatal depression is such an important reminder that mental health is something we all need to check in on regularly. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this conversation with someone who might benefit from hearing it. I'll be back on Friday with a bonus edition of Life of Bryony. See you then.